if we turn our backs and spit in his face, is God still gonna bless the USA?
In the late stages of a long winter, homeowners sometimes stop checking their roofs. The snow has been there for months, nothing has collapsed, life feels normal enough, but beneath the surface, ice dams form quietly. Water seeps where it shouldn't, and then one day, without warning, the ceiling caves in. The damage didn't happen because the house was weak, it happens because attention faded. Liberty works the same way. It rarely collapses in a crisis. More often, it deteriorates during calm seasons when people assume that structure will hold without inspection, vigilance, or repair. Freedom doesn't disappear because it was attacked, it disappears because it was neglected. That quiet danger has followed free people for centuries. Greetings, Patriots. I'm Perry Green. Welcome to God in America, where faith and freedom stand shoulder to shoulder in the story of our nation. Today, we're going to reflect on the anniversary of Thomas Jefferson's birth. Jefferson matters because he understood liberty not only as a political principle, but as a moral responsibility. He also understood that America began with unfinished work, and unfinished truths eventually demand to be faced. Thomas Jefferson was born on April the 13th, 1743 in Colonial, Virginia. He's best remembered as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, which voiced the radical claim that human rights come not from kings or governments, but from God himself. Yet Jefferson's legacy is often reduced to a caricature. He was a man of deep moral conflict, especially regarding slavery. What many Americans do not realize is that Jefferson explicitly condemned slavery in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, in which he accused King George III of waging, quote, cruel war against human nature itself, unquote, for sustaining the slave trade and imposing slavery upon the colonies. He called slavery a violation of the most sacred rights of life and liberty. This was not vague language, it was an indictment. But that paragraph never made it into the final declaration. Jefferson later explained that delegates from Georgia and South Carolina objected strongly. Their economies depended heavily on slavery, and without their support, independence itself was at risk. Faced with the collapse of colonial unity, Jefferson reluctantly withdrew the passage, intending to address the issue after liberty was achieved. That was not approval, it was concession. Jefferson's revulsion of slavery was long-standing and well-documented. He wrote, "I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever." That was not political rhetoric, that was moral dread. At the same time, Jefferson feared that sudden abolition without moral and civic preparation would tear the fragile republic apart. He saw slavery as an evil inherited, not created, but one that would exact a terrible cost if left unresolved. His words were prophetic. Scripture is uncompromising in its affirmation of the dignity of human life. Genesis 1, verse 27 declares that every person is made in the image of God. No economic system, tradition, or convenience can override that truth. Micah 6, verse 8 tells us what the Lord requires: to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. Jefferson understood justice as a divine standard, not a human invention. His fear that God's justice would not sleep forever echoes biblical reality. Nations are accountable to God, not merely to history. Freedom severed from righteousness becomes unstable. Liberty divorced from justice becomes hypocrisy. If Jefferson could view contemporary America, he would likely be deeply conflicted. He would grieve that a nation founded on God-given rights has often treated liberty as a disposable convenience rather than a sacred trust. He would be alarmed by massive centralized power and recall his warning: the natural progress of things is for liberty to yield and government to gain ground. He would see moral confusion replacing moral clarity and repeat his sobering words: if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be. And yet Jefferson might also recognize something familiar. He would see a nation still wrestling with conscience, still divided between comfort and conviction, still tempted to delay hard truths for the sake of peace. Our liberty must be guarded or it will be lost, and justice must be pursued or liberty becomes hollow. Faith and freedom are inseparable. God given liberty requires moral responsibility, biblical vision, and the courage to confront evil when it's inconvenient. America's founding declared a truth larger than any one generation. Our task is not to erase that truth, but to live up to it. Well, thank you for being with us today at God in America, where we remember that liberty requires moral restraint, educated citizens, and a reverence for truth that transcends political fashion. Until next time, as we honor Mr. Jefferson, let's keep the light of liberty burning.